All right, leadership framework. We're going to be unpacking that today, sharing our top 12 frameworks, insights that we've gained from the last 20 years of being in the trenches as entrepreneurs and operators. Before we jump into that, if you are listening to this, would you please share this episode with someone that might find value in it? Like, subscribe,
share
all that good stuff.
Yes.
Leave us a review.
Yes, please.
That would mean a ton to us. And then also, if you give us some comments on what you want to hear us talk about in the future, we will customize topics in the future, make sure we're talking about what you want to hear about. But today, we are jumping into top 12 leadership frameworks. These are things that we've developed over the years of running businesses and leading people. And this is going to be a fun one. Lots of really hard learned lessons here. The first thing, and it's really more of a myth, like I want to start with the first one of these 12, is that leadership is a skill. And I say that because I hear so many people say like this person's a shitty leader or that person's not a natural leader. Yeah. And I think that that's a bunch of crap. Leadership is skills, right? Like you have to intentionally work to build leadership skill sets, and you have to be aware of what works and what does not work as a leader. Yeah, exactly. If nobody ever tells you, you don't fucking know, right?
Right. I mean, what you said was nobody is born a leader.
Right.
And there's this myth that people are like just a natural born leader or who's born to lead. And I think that there is a level of truth with personality, but not with the skill sets required to actually lead people.
Yeah, some people have magnetic personalities, like charisma is, I think, what people mistake that to be.
Exactly.
It's like, hey, this person walks in the room and I notice that person. That is charisma, though. It is not leadership.
Exactly.
And so I just wanted to spell that. And that's really the first one I wanted to unpack, is that this is a skill set. And it's a skill set that if you want to lead people, you have to intentionally develop, just like anything else, right? If you want to get good at sales, work on your sales skills. If you want to get good at leading people, really dive into like, what are the leadership concepts, what are the leadership frameworks to actually successfully lead other human beings? Because it's not something you're just naturally going to know how to do.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that rely a significant amount on charisma and personality. And because they're loud and because they will naturally take charge in a room, people mistake that as leadership. And those people especially, I think, have to really self-reflect and say, am I actually building the skills to lead people, or am I just diverting my charisma attention, to try to get these people to go somewhere?
Right. And what you are also saying is, like, oftentimes the loudest person in the room is not the strongest leader.
Yeah,
they're just
exactly.
the loudest person,
That's
right?
Exactly right. Yeah.
Like I think of Jocko Willink from Extreme Ownership. We're going to talk about some of his concepts here today. Maybe the quietest dude on the planet. Like, you talk to Jocko, like when I met him, and he was just like standing there staring at me.
Yeah, he's taking it in.
He's
had assessing.
Nothing to say whatsoever. He was just listening what I was saying, right? And then he thought about it for a couple of seconds, like 10 awkward long seconds, and then asked me a really pointed question. You know what I mean? So I think that's another big one, is like, hey, it's not the loudest person in the room either.
Yeah. And I think that there's so many people that think that leadership is loud. They think that leadership, like, again, is the charisma, is the loudest person in the room. It's the person taking charge all the time. And true leadership actually works more in silence, right? True leadership, you're actually elevating others around you.
Right.
It's not just elevating yourself. So thinking you're a leader and that you have to be out front and that you're the guy all the time, like, that's not true leadership. That's popularity, maybe.
All right. So that's the first principle and framework I want to share. The second one, leading by example. And I think that this ties into leading your kids and also ties into leading other human beings. Yep. So
it's leading by example is such an easy catchphrase. I think it's really easy for people to say, like, oh yeah, I'm going to lead by example. Well, that means all the time. That means living in integrity. That means knowing your character inside and out and being the person who does the things you say you do. I think that there's a lot of people that will lead by example in one area and then not live in integrity in other areas.
Yeah, or they will lead by example when people are watching.
Yeah,
but in the shadows, that's not who they really are. So there's an authenticity gap that exists there, and people can sniff that shit out,
they can
right?
totally
like,
sense
hey,
it.
but are you really a living, breathing, walking example of the expectations you have for other people?
Exactly.
If you're not, you got a big fucking problem, right? And this one can take some years to work through.
Yep.
This is one of the ones that I think takes people a very long time to understand and to implement, and they can't just fake it. Like, the people, they will know, right? You have to be authentically who you present to be and what your expectations are for others.
I mean, yeah, but same person behind closed doors as you are in front of people. So, the next one, leadership frameworks, is framing the target.
Yeah.
Want to talk about this one?
Yeah. I mean, so the way that I look at this framework is, as leaders, have we really shaped what the mission is for our people? You know what I mean? Do they know what they're aiming at when they're going to work? And also with our kids too. Like, I look at the values statement that we developed with our children, right? That's framing the target of ethics and integrity with our kids. Well, with our team and our staff, we have to do that exact same thing. Like, what is the target that we're going after? And that's really a leader's job, is to help them understand that. Because if you go in an organization, you ask them, hey, what's the mission here? What are we doing every single day? They better be able to answer that question with very, very good clarity. Otherwise, you have a team that is unfocused and doesn't know where you're going.
Yeah, I think, it's connecting that, your vision to people's actions, right? So, there's two sides to this. So in a real estate team, for instance, with an operations and a sales team, there's different missions for each of the players on the team, right? Each of the team members, but everybody is working toward a shared vision. So have you set the expectations? Have you painted the vision? Are they enrolled and bought in on that vision to be able to take that action toward that mission?
Yeah. And do they know what those actions are that aligns to the mission, right? Have we gotten very, very clear on that?
Right. So it's a leader's job to frame that target and then help assess.
Yep.
Going forward.
Number 4, plan and prepare. 2 of your favorite words, right?
Totally.
What do you think made you so resistant as a leader to really embrace this part?
I've always just kind of believed in just head down doing the work. When I plan things, I feel like if things change or if I need to pivot in the moment, it almost felt like a failure for a really long time. Like, oh, well, this is the mission. And if I go against that or outside of that, then I'm failing this vision. And so why plan if I'm going to pivot anyways? And so I think it was, for me, planning, like setting goals, setting targets, like all that's very important. But there was a level of it that, like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, and I'm an Aquarius. I want to fly by the seat of my pants sometimes. I want to be okay, like, pivoting if necessary. So, it took me a long time to understand, like, that the vision and the planning, the preparation isn't just for me. Right? It's for my team. It's for my kids. It's so they know what we're working toward. And then if there is a change, if there is a pivot necessary, then it's a group discussion, right? Or it's a leadership decision on the battlefield in the moment. And then we're re-enrolling people into this. And it's typically not the actual vision that's changing, but the path to get there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, in any planning and preparation, there's always going to be deviation, right? Because you plan and prepare to the best of what you can expect and what you think to be true, but then other things will change, right? And that causes these forks in the road where now decisions have to be made.
Exactly.
But it doesn't change necessarily what the mission is, right? We know where we're going and we think we know how we're going to get there, and then we start to fine tune that on the path once we actually get going on it.
Right. Exactly right.
So,
yeah. And this is something I think that you're naturally better at. You like to have that plan and preparation. So we're a good mix in that way.
Yeah. I personally hate flying by the seat of my pants. I think that is a huge waste of energy. And I think if you lead other human beings, you're wasting their energy as well. I like to be that missile that's like completely honed in on the target and knows exactly how it's going to fly there.
Yep. So speaking of that, the next leadership principle is being impeccable with your word.
Yeah. This is, for those that have read the 4 Agreements, this is the first of the 4 Agreements, a really, really good book that I would recommend that you read. It's a simple, like, little 2-hour read. I just re-listened to it again. And this one, I think, really, really hits home. To me, a lot of people, when I ask them about, like, what does integrity mean to you? They're like, well, it means that I tell the truth to other people. And I think that that's a huge, huge, huge misunderstanding of what integrity is. Integrity is doing what you fucking say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Right? It's integrity with yourself. And I think so many people misunderstand that question. Telling the truth is awesome, right? You should always tell the truth. You shouldn't be full of shit.
Right.
But when you look in the mirror, do you have integrity with yourself? When you tell another human being, I'm going to do X, no matter what, X is going to happen. Right? This is the foundation of trust within teams. Without this, we have no trust.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, and it's also the foundation of trust within yourself, which having ultimate trust with yourself, doing what you said you're going to do, regardless of if you feel like it or not, that is what builds confidence. And so by not being impeccable with your word, by not doing what you're saying you're going to do and laying the foundation for integrity and a good character, you're also imploding your self-confidence.
Totally. Yep. Absolutely. I think it's maybe one of the most important, if not the most important on our list. And it's super foundational, and a lot of people really struggle with this actually.
Why
it sounds really simple, but it's actually, it's something that I think so many people really, really struggle with.
Well, I think that comes back to like a culture of accountability, right? Like if you say you're going to do something and then you don't, and there's nobody there to hold you accountable, including you yourself, not holding yourself accountable, like you're number one, you're never going to lead people, right? And number two, you're going to have a lack of respect for yourself at the end of the day as well.
Right. You just said, why is this the case? And I think the reason it's the case is it's a multitude of factors, but one of those factors would be grit. People aren't gritty, so they don't push through when shit gets hard. They just stop. Another one is lack of focus. Right. So they just don't get stuff done because they were unable to focus on it and they got distracted. Another one is a lack of planning. Right. I didn't plan to actually spend the time that it was going to take to do what I said I was going to do.
Didn't get into their calendar blocks.
Right. So there's a lot of reasons that shit doesn't get done. But it's a really big one. And I think that you're building a house of cards as a leader if you don't really address this one in your organization. And going back to leading by example, it fucking starts with you.
Yeah. 100% agree.
So. All right, next one up, one that I think you really excel at is embracing hard conversations.
Yeah.
Why is this so important as a leader?
Embracing hard conversations. And I mean, this is as a parent, this is as a leader, this is as a teammate. You need to be able to address really tough things. And because the basis of that tough conversation is a care for that person, right? And I think most people shy away from hard conversations because they don't want to hurt somebody's shallow feelings, right? They don't want to hurt somebody's feelings on this superficial level. When in reality, having a hard conversation with somebody, addressing something in real time is not just an internal love for yourself, but it's a love and a care for that person. Because you're saying, hey, this is an important thing to address. And I'm not going to go any further in this life or on this project or in this transaction or whatever until we actually address the root of this situation, which is this problem that's right in front of us right now. Whether that's caused, whether that's, intentional or, really doesn't matter. It really is, I need to have this hard conversation and it's because I care about where this goes and if we go together or not.
Right. And I think the reason that so many leaders don't do this, they're afraid that the person's not going to like them anymore. Right. Totally. They prioritize maybe a friendship within the business and they put that over being the person's leader. And if that's what you're doing, you got a really big fucking problem.
100%.
Right? You have to put on your leadership hat. You have to push your friendship aside if that's what's getting in the way and lean into that hard conversation. Right. And as Mark Gelman, again, one of our coaches says, you have to do it fast.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Like when you have a problem, you can't afford to wait till the next time you see this person 5 days from now. Like you have to address that.
Right. You don't wait till Monday.
Why is that though?
Because who knows what would, like, so much life happens every single day. Like, you have no idea how, if they're dealing with something really tough or you're waiting to have this hard conversation until days and days from now, there could be so many things that happen. Or if a doubt is planted, that seed can sprout very, very quickly into resentment or into chaos or into, miscalculated, understandings of each other. I mean, there are so many things that can happen if you let that go too long, that would never happen if you just address that conversation. One other thing that I think is really important about embracing hard conversations is to go into every hard conversation with positive intent, right? Like going into it with curiosity, saying, hey, I'm checking in on you. Hey, I noticed this. Like, tell me more about that. Like, what's going on, with you with that? Don't go into it accusatory, because I think going into it with a spirit of curiosity as opposed to accusation will 10 out of 10 times result in a much better conversation.
Right. Is there any other reasons you think that leaders won't embrace hard conversations other than just the fear of severing the relationship with the person or fear of loss of the person leaving?
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. I think it's the fear of loss of the person leaving. I think it's fear of being disliked. A lot of people cannot handle the idea of being disliked by anybody because our culture. And then number 3, I think, is what I mentioned before, which, they don't want to hurt the person's feelings.
Right. Absolutely. That leads us to the next one. Don't make assumptions. This is also from the 4 agreements. Yep. So you can see a common theme popping up here. You just gave a really good example of why not making assumptions is super, super important. But it's very easy, I think, for almost anyone to go to a very dark place when they see somebody else's behaviors and they don't know why this person did this thing. Right. And so they just assume the absolute worst case scenario.
Every time.
Well, this person's a fucking asshole and they wanted to stab me in the back. Right.
Yeah. They hate me. They want me to fail.
Maybe they didn't actually know what you know.
Yeah.
And they didn't have all the information.
Exactly.
And so maybe you're completely miscalculating the situation. Right.
100%.
And so as a leader, how do you incorporate this into your day to day with your people?
Yeah. I mean, like by, the leadership principle is don't make assumptions. And it is so incredibly key that you don't know what that person's been through most of the time. You don't know what has happened in their life that, creates a reaction they may have been triggered by, or an emotion that came up that was brought on by something that you have no idea about. You have no idea if they just had a terrible fight with a family member. You have no idea if, they're experiencing a big loss in one area of life and it's coming out as being really prickly and really rude. Like, you're making assumptions based on your own projections of what you think you know. And most of the time we have no fucking idea. So it's really, really, really important that by not making assumptions, we go in again, assuming positive intent. We're going to assume that I don't know what you've gone through, that I don't know what you think. I don't know what your reaction is to this particular thing. So I'm going to go in with curiosity.
And we also don't know if you had the best of intentions or not, right? Like, we have to assume that you had great intention.
Exactly.
Right? That you weren't intentionally damaging the organization or whatever you were doing, right? You just didn't know something, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's a huge, huge, huge thing for leaders.
Yeah, 100% agreed. Yep. Next one. No false cheerleading. And I said this because this is your favorite one.
Yeah, this is out of the Extreme Ownership Playbook. So Jocko's book. I love this one. And I love this one because it keeps mediocrity and average from settling into your organization, right? No false cheerleading means that when people do their job, give them a fist bump, move on with the rest of your day, right? Like, we don't hype up mediocrity or just doing the norm. We hype up and we celebrate exceptionalism, right? Yes. When you do something that's fucking epic, that's when we're going to make a big deal out of it. If you just show up and do your job, like, cool, but I'm not going to go out of my way to make you feel super special about that, right?
People don't get bonused on doing the job they signed up to do.
Right. So there's some level of authenticity to this, right? Yeah. That when you actually do crush it, celebrate that person. But when they just show up and do the job, it's not that's just it builds such a false amount of hope within an organization, right? Because this person feels so elevated, but they just literally did the norm, right?
Exactly.
It's like getting a 5th place trophy and putting it up on your wall, right? Who fucking cares? Like, great, you did the expectation. That in no way is exceptional. What have you done today that is actually exceptional? It's like so far beyond what was within the scope of your job or your responsibility, or what average expectations would have been, that you just completely obliterated, right?
Well, and what else does it do to the rest of the organization?
Well, it just, if you actually did something special, it elevates the whole room, right? Like, all of a sudden everyone's like, now, hey, Johnny just kicked ass and sold 5 houses this month. Fuck that guy. I'm going to beat him, right? But when Johnny sold 1 house and that's the norm, and you say, hey, amazing job this month, Johnny, you fucking crushed it. You sold a house. What the hell, right? Like, I congratulate this guy on doing the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And now I've set a norm in the organization that doing the bare minimum gets you celebrated. And that's a foundation of shit, right?
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, you're lowering the bar of exceptionalism, and people who want to continue to grow and people who want to continue to do better and reach further and excel are going to say, wait, that's all I have to do here? Like, I've got no room for growth.
Right.
Because if that's the norm, if that's exceptional, if that's what it's being celebrated, maybe this isn't the place for me.
Why do leaders do this?
I think leaders do this because they think that by cheerleading positive behaviors, they'll get more of it. When in reality, if you cheerlead like basic behaviors, that's all you're going to get.
Right. You just lowered the bar like you just
Exactly.
said. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more with that. All right. Next one up. Manage the outcomes.
Yes.
What do we mean when we say this?
Yes. So I like to say, everybody in my organization and everybody that we bring into our team, we hate micromanaging. Like I hate micromanaging my teammates. I think micromanaging teammates is the biggest way to erode their confidence, their respect for you, and basically to make an environment in a company full of complete order takers.
Yeah.
So when we're managing the outcomes, we're looking for, did you get the job done the way that we want it done? Did you get it done? And sometimes that's exactly the path of the SOP that we've just written. And sometimes we give the autonomy to our teammates and our kids. If you find a different, more efficient, better way to do this, that's less money, less effort, and you still got the job done exactly the same, we're going to celebrate that because we are managing the outcome.
Right. And yeah, you kind of corrected yourself there. Like, okay, sometimes I don't actually care what your process was to get to the outcome.
Right.
If you took some deviations in the SOP, or you decided to make some judgment calls in the moment to pivot to hit the outcome, that's awesome. That's taking ownership. That's what we want to see, right? We don't want people just that are robots that are just following, a flow chart of how to do something. Like that's there to provide a framework of how something could be done and the best practice. But then you're an intelligent human that needs to make decisions, right?
Exactly. Yeah. We tell the people on our team, it's like, look, if you are consistently achieving the outcomes that we're looking for, there's no need for me to go and inspect the majority of the actual work being done because the outcomes are there. Whereas if you're not getting the outcome that you're looking for, that your goal is, or that the organization needs in that position, then we're going to start going backwards and start looking at the different pathways, or they're looking at the different procedures that you're following to see where the breakdown is, right?
Yeah.
But we tell our admin especially, it's like, most of the time, I'm going to want you to drive that car like you stole it. I want you to take ownership over this task and drive that outcome all the way across the finish line. And then let's celebrate, right?
And with agents too, this is a mistake that I see, and this is what pushes out top producers from organizations. I've seen it with other teams, not ours, but with others, where the leader just hammers the top producers on following things to the letter, right? And that is a complete mismanagement. Like you're actually managing the process now more than you are the outcome. And it's super problematic, and it pushes away top producers. Because top producers, they want to understand what the boundaries are, but your top producers will always push your boundaries, right? But if they get the outcome and they exceed the outcome, which they all do, then why do you fucking care how they got there?
Exactly.
And so in the agent world, like I always look at our agents' units. How many units did you say you were going to sell? And how many did you sell? If you met or beat it, the conversation is over right there.
Yep.
Right? If you want to raise the target, awesome. We can kind of reverse engineer that. But if you didn't hit the target, if you didn't hit your commitment, now I'm going to start really descending into the details of how many appointments did you sign? How many did you set? What does that ratio look like?
Exactly.
Right? What is your talk time per person on average? How many are you talking to that you're setting appointments with? How long are your conversations on average? All these types of things. Like we're going to start obsessing about the details to figure out where's the breakdown that's keeping you from hitting the target, right?
Exactly.
But if you've hit the outcome, who gives a shit, right?
Exactly.
Let them go in autonomy and just keep doing their thing.
Exactly.
Right?
So yeah, I mean that's managing the outcomes as leader.
And managing the outcomes and shaping the target are part and parcel. These two things work together. I've shaped the target, or I've helped them shape it in the agent scenario there. And now they know where to go. They know how to get there. I'm there to support them if they need support, but let them go shoot for the target now.
Yep, exactly. Love it. Next one. Avoid family style leadership.
This is, so our good buddy John Cheplack talks about this a lot. Shout out to John. And I love this one because there's a huge difference between business operators and family style leaders. Business operators, they look at the details. They look at the numbers, right? They manage people as if they're people. They don't manage them like they're their kid, right? And this is a really big mistake that a lot of people make that I see in organizations. Like they act like they're the person's mom or their dad. And it's actually kind of gross. It's inappropriate. And it does not inspire confidence with your people. It's actually micromanaging typically.
So I was going to say, give an example of this family style leadership.
Well, like family style leadership is like, it's like talking down to your team, right? Like,
Yes,
hey,
exactly.
like I'm going to scold you like I scolded my teenage son, right? For not tying his shoelaces. I'm going to scold you for not following the CRM process or some bullshit like that, right? Like I'm going to remind you of standards, right? But I'm not going to micromanage this shit. I'm not going to belittle you or treat you like a 10-year-old child. I'm going to treat you like an adult because you are an adult. I'm going to expect you to have a level of maturity, and you can expect that same thing back out of me.
I think that most people who lead in this family style leadership, whether they talk down or condescend or nitpick their team or their people, do it because of ego, right? A lot of people who consider themselves leaders or are trying to be a leader want to be the best one. And if anybody else rises up to be better than them, then they are threatened. And there's ego that gets involved. And now they have to talk down to that person and try to keep them at this level. Where a true leader wants everybody around them to do better, right? Like I want all of the agents on my team to absolutely obliterate our production. Probably not going to happen, but I want it for them, and I will do anything we can to possibly raise the bar for them. So I really think that family style leadership, have a good look in the mirror. If you feel like you've talked down to people or condescended people in your organization, like, are you doing that because you feel like that is what's going to get the best out of them? Or are you doing that because of something personal?
Yeah, well, I think another distinction, I think you're accurate in your what you're articulating, but I think another distinction is the ability to let other people rise up, right? Because in family style leadership, there's mom and there's dad, and that's the top of the food chain, right? And that's a really big problem in an organization, because how many people can you actually have reporting to you, right? So that's where it breaks from family style leadership to a true organization, is when you build leadership within your organization, right? We used to have somebody within our team who would be like, oh, mom and dad are here. I fucking hated that shit. Do not call me dad. Do not call you mom. We're business leaders here, right? I fucking hated that, right? I want to build other leaders, right? And how you act when I'm around should be exactly how you act when I'm not around, too, right? That makes it sound like the expectations are different if I'm physically hovering over you or if you're on your own.
Yeah, which is not accurate.
That's a horrible way to operate.
Yeah, agreed,
right?
Completely. Yep. No.
So
we've gotten past that.
Next up, never stop learning as a leader. This is a really, really big one. People will outgrow you quickly if you stop improving yourself. Right?
100%. I mean, shout out to Eric Hatch, like somebody who taught us a lot about leadership, and especially family style, not family style, but within our family, and then also like how to lead people and grow our pumpkins, so to speak, right? Like he was pivotal in that. But one of the things that he always said is, make sure that the people in your organization who want to do business with you, who want to be in business with you, that their dreams always fit within yours. So yours has to be so big. Your vision, your dreams have to be so big that everybody that wants to come along with you, their big dreams can fit within that world.
Right. I think another big part of this too is like expanding your mind in master plans or by coaching, and being able to bring those kind of expansions back to your team, right? And be like, hey, I've kind of been enlightened to a different angle I didn't see before. I want to make sure that you have the benefit of seeing that same angle, right? That's where I think growth really begins this nice progression where it just kind of keeps going as the leader learns, and the leader then pours back into the organization that moves the whole organization up. Yeah, no,
that's an excellent point. And I think, the delivery, like you just kind of mentioned, is so incredibly key, right? Because there are a lot of leaders that go to business conferences and masterminds and they're coached, and then they don't really bring any of those principles to the leaders on their team or the budding leaders on their team or the people who want to get into leadership. And so it always kind of it feels like there's this person out here who's learning all these things and having all these opportunities and learn all this stuff. And then there's everybody else who's just like hanging out and doing their thing. So this kind of ties into the last leadership framework, which is, of course, building runways for your champions, right? So a big part of that is when you're going to masterminds, when you're being coached, when you're understanding and learning new frameworks or new mindsets, to bring those to your people, explain them in a way that makes sense, and enroll them into that with you so that you're moving forward as a unit.
Right. I think the building runways, that's a great way. That's an Eric Hatch thing to describe, having more opportunity for your people, especially your pumpkins, like the big people in your organization and the key people. They need to know what is next for them. If they don't know what is next, you have a very big problem as a leader.
Exactly.
They feel like they're going to outgrow you at that point, kind of like what I was just talking about. How can I go further, right? Whether if it's making more money, more responsibility, more leadership opportunities, other businesses that I can tap into with you. How do I go further, and what is next from where I'm already at? I don't want to be stagnant. No top producers want to be stagnant. They want growth.
Right. And that's a part of continuing conversation. And from our, one of our current coaches now, he talks about business intimacy. Like, are you bringing your people, your champions in your organization into the fold? Are you letting them know what's next for the organization? Are you giving them a say to have their fingerprints on part of the processes? Are you letting them know, hey, this is what's next for us, or here are the couple of opportunities if you wanted to grow in one of these directions, like we can help nurture that. That's part of building a runway for the champions in your organization, is keeping them close to the business, what's going on, and keeping in proximity to them constantly.
Yep, absolutely. And the last one, number 12, or the bonus one, inspect what you expect.
Yep.
I think this one has been the one that you've grown the most on in the last year. Why do you think this is something that you really have kind of opened your eyes to?
I mean, I think I always knew it in theory, right? And I think that because I come from more of a feeler side, right? Like I'm a people side person. I don't come from like the science side like you do. That's kind of your MO. I always felt like, well, if I'm checking in on how people are doing, that's good. That's wonderful. That'll keep them going. And what the turn that I took, or the fork in the road that I took, was really, it also has a lot to do with what they're doing. Like, it's not just how, it's what.
It's not, there's no set it and forget it in business.
No, exactly. Right. And and I had to get over the mindset that I'm nitpicking them, because that's how I always felt. I felt like if I go and inspect all these things that I expect in the CRM or in these processes or communication cadences or whatever it is, I'm nitpicking and they'll feel micromanaged. And of course, as a young baby leader, I never want to make somebody feel bad or feel a certain way. So I shied away from it, where my mindset shifted and said, hey, actually, if I'm inspecting these things, they are going to grow. They are literally going to be able to take that coaching from me as I'm inspecting what I expect, as I'm inspecting the processes. I'm not nitpicking to nitpick. I only point stuff out, either, hey, great job on this, like affirming that they've done a good job following the process or getting an outcome. Or I say, hey, next time, try saying this instead, or try doing this instead, or make sure to tag it so that in the future, you know that you've got to whatever it is, right? So now I'm coaching. Now I'm helping them. Now I'm helping them grow. Now they are finding value in it. And it's not nitpicking. It's not micromanaging. So it's what they're doing, not just how they're doing.
That's a huge breakthrough for sure. That's massive in your growth as a leader. So it's really like a 3-point progression. If we look back at these 12 things, right? The most important thing to start with is to shape the target, right? And then the next part, we got to inspect what we expect along that mission, right? And the other part is
managing the outcomes.
Managing the outcomes.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So 100%. It's kind of like that 3-way progression. So
love it.
Cool. Anything else you want to add?
No, that was chunky.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff in there.
There's 20 years of leadership lessons for you, and a whole, I've probably read 200 leadership books as well. And I had to make sure I incorporated some of my favorites from Jocko's book and from the 4 Agreements.
Absolutely.
So John Maxwell has some awesome leadership books I've started reading as well, like some really, really good stuff also. So that's all for today. If you want to connect with us, meetthenovaks.com is the site to do so. You can find me at The Real Mike Novak on Instagram. If you could also like, share, review this, that would be super awesome and massively appreciated by Rachel and I.
100%. And you can find me on Instagram at Rachel Novak with the extra A.
See you next week.
See ya.